Hello, everybody. This is my pleasure to present you our work in understanding the neurocognitive markers of impaired attention control in PTSD and the effectiveness of working memory training on improving attention control and PTSD symptoms. PTSD is a clinical neurocognitive disorder which happened after experiencing a traumatic event. Now, cognitive impairments are part of PTSD's diagnostic criterion DSM-5, and we can see the roots of these cognitive impairments in PTSD symptoms such as intrusion and rumination. And this picture tells us about the urgent need for developing cognitive interventions. Working memory is the brain supervisory system, and its limited capacity is about how efficient we are in controlling our attention toward relevant information. When we are struggling with some emotional problems such as PTSD, this limited capacity is occupied with emotional stuff. So it's much harder for this supervisory system to work efficiently. In this study, first we investigated the neurocognitive mechanism of PTSD symptom by using ERP, and then we targeted this mechanism by using working memory training to reduce PTSD symptom and improve attention control. So we have two studies here. First, a comparison study, and then an intervention study. In study one, we had three groups: PTSD from road traffic accident, non-PTSD, and healthy control group. We used emotional working memory capacity task to investigate the effects of trauma-related, ambiguous, and neutral materials on working memory capacity. Here you can see our EWMC task different phases. You can see our set size in encoding phase, distractor types here, and in retrieval phase, they were asked to select the changed photo. We also use a classic version of flank task, which is a reliable task for assessing attention control. We wanted to see how PTSD survivors inhibit irrelevant information to control and regulate their attention. We also use event-related potential because of its very good temporal resolution. We looked at N1 and N2 in a flank task, which is related to attention control, and in EWMC task, we look at vertex positive potential, which is related to phase processing. Also, we looked at P2 in distractor phase and P3 as the neuromarker of working memory capacity. And we calculated the working memory capacity based on COF formula as presented here. In EWMC task result, we can see that by increasing on behavioral level, by increasing the set size, working memory capacity decreased, and there is a significant difference between PTSD and non-PTSD group with healthy control group, especially in high load condition. But in neural level, when we look at VPP on encoding level, there isn't significant difference between the three groups, which means that this difference doesn't come from this level of processing, and we need to investigate the reason in the later processes. Here, I want to talk about the result of distractor and retrieval phase of EWMC task in just trials with trauma-related distractors. I mean here this part of this graph. As you can see here, there is a difference between non-PTSD and PTSD group in working memory capacity with healthy control group, which expected, especially for PTSD group. And on neural level, as you can see here, both non-PTSD and PTSD group had more P2 here, which means that how they surprised when they exposed to trauma-related distractor, which is expected, especially for a PTSD group. But on P3, as you can see here, there isn't significant difference between these three groups, which is interesting because with this effort on neural level, for both PTSD and non-PTSD group, they couldn't get better performance on behavioral level, which can be concluded as a sign of compensation on neural level. here, I want to talk about the behavioral and neural results of distractor and retrieval phase of EWMC task, just in ambiguous trials with ambiguous distractors. I mean here. As you can see here, there's a significant difference in CA, in working memory capacity, in both PTSD and non-PTSD group with healthy control group, which is interesting because it seems that ambiguous distractors works as fearful distractors. And when we look at P2 here, we can see how PTSD and non-PTSD group react with surprise when they're exposed to ambiguous distractor. But again, this much effort on P3, which is related to working memory capacity, isn't related to better performance on behavioral level of working memory capacity, which is interesting because it's again can be a sign of compensation on neural level. On blanket task, we calculated congruency index by subtracting correct response in incongruent trials from correct response in congruent trials. And as expected, and as you can see here, there is significant difference between non-PTSD group and PTSD group, and non-PTSD group perform much better than PTSD group. Which means that when they exposed to neutral condition, they perform much better than PTSD group. But on neural level, we couldn't get significant difference between these three groups by looking at N1 and N2. Study 2, we used adaptive dual and-back training, which get a very promising result on clinical and neuroimaging studies. In this study, we had two groups. First with adaptive dual and-back training, and the other one non-adaptive one-back training, and we also had 1 month follow-up. Here, I want to present to you a sample of our training. As an example of a dual one-back condition, they were asked to react when they see similar location for this green square or either hear similar sound. After passing 12 sessions of training in 2 weeks, here I presented a working memory capacity result in EWMC task. And first, I want to talk about this condition, which is related to neutral distractor part. If you remember, in study 1, neutral condition was easiest part of EWMC task for PTSD group. And if you look at N-back group here, you can see how they improved from pre-test to post-test and follow-up here. But one-back group didn't get this improvement, as you can see here. But in trauma-related and also the ambiguous related distractors and trials, we couldn't get this improvement, maybe because of the difficulty level of our task in these two conditions. The difference between pre-test to post-test can be as a result of novelty effect in pre-test for N-back, both N-back and one-back group in trauma-related and scrambled distractors, and the improvement from post-test to follow-up in all conditions and groups can be as a result of consolidation. In flank task, you can see how congruency index improved for N-back group from pre-test to post-test and follow-up rather than the one-back group. And PTSD symptoms in intrusion, avoidance, and hyperarousability, which assessed by IESR, you can see how N-back group improved from pre-test to post-test and follow-up, especially in intrusion, which is very, very important for us. And also improvement in avoidance and hyperarousality for MBAC group. Discussion of study 1, we found very interesting result on ambiguity effect, which worked as fearful distractors in both neuro and behavioral level, especially in non-PTSD group, which needs more investigation in future studies. In discussion of study 2, we found very interesting result in transfer effects of neutral training, I mean adaptive dual MBAC training to emotional tasks. And also increasing in working memory capacity has the potential to reduce PTSD symptoms and increase quality of life. Further research is needed, especially in non-PTSD group, by using ambiguity distractor to detect reaction to ambiguity in both neuro and behavioral level, extending the effect of training via working memory novel working memory training design, and finally using pre-conscious assessment task as an outcome measure. Thank you so much.